Thanks so much, Brenda. I know these meetings take a lot of work and it's much appreciated. If I look a little tired, I've spent the last 4 days chasing my 3 and 4-year-old grandchildren while their parents were taking a vacation at 11,000 feet in Breckenridge, where they live. So just returned last night. It's amazing the energy that 3 and 4-year-old children have. So I am delighted to join you to help kick off today's workshop. This marks the 7th year we've held this important event, focusing on the transformative impact on generic development, regulation, and approval as a result of the FDA's generic drug user fee amendments, science and research programs. These meetings take a lot of work and they summarize a lot of information. It's a great chance for me as I prepare for this to summarize from the point of view of the FDA as a whole where we are. And it is important, this is the first year that's included both in-person and virtual attendees after 4 years of virtual-only workshops. That's an exciting development, and I want to thank the Office of Generic Drugs and Office of Pharmaceutical Quality in collaboration with the Office of Small Business and Industry Assistance for facilitating this and once again organizing today's workshop. I also want to recognize the developers and other stakeholders who are participating here today, as well as the industry support of the generic drug development program. The FDA offers many different types of public workshops and meetings, but today's has a particularly important emphasis. At the most basic level, this meeting provides a valuable opportunity for attendees to engage with FDA scientists on topics including guidance development, advanced analytics, and physiologically based pharmacokinetic modeling for generic drug development and equivalence characterization. This is an approach we pursue across the agency in our effort to provide meaningful opportunities for FDA scientists and industry to share knowledge through personal contact and in-depth discussion. What makes this session even more special is the focus captured in the second part of the program title, Translating Science to Approval. These few words highlight an important aspect of the FDA that's often overlooked or misunderstood, and that's the role we play in spurring and supporting innovation. A critical part of our work to advance the health and safety of consumers and patients involves our role in driving scientific innovation that will benefit the public. We're constantly working to develop and adapt regulatory policies in response to and in anticipation of scientific opportunities and changes so they can be harnessed for the improvement of health and medical care. Few areas have as direct a connection to the public in this regard as generic products, both in the personal benefit that generic products provide to patients and the broader advantages they bring through lower costs and increased accessibility as a result of greater competition. I certainly can speak from personal experience to the benefits of various medications I've taken over the years that are available to me in generic form. As a cardiologist, I'm keenly aware of the importance of controlling my blood pressure and lipid levels as I age. This is completely accomplished with inexpensive generic drugs, and I'm sure many of you have had similar experiences. It's no coincidence that this meeting is being held today, September 24th, a date that marks the 40th anniversary of the Hatch-Waxman amendments. That law has had a remarkable impact on the U.S. healthcare system by creating the modern generic drug application pathway and strengthening the generic drug industry, which in turn has provided the public with greater opportunities to acquire less expensive treatments. It's truly a paradigm shift. Consider that when the amendments were enacted in 1984, generic drugs accounted for just 19% of all prescription drug purchases in the United States. Today, generics account for more than 90% of prescriptions filled in the U.S., and as the pipeline from the innovative sector ages, the availability of generics continues to rise. The economic effect is also significant. According to the Association for Accessible Medicines, in 2022, the most recent year for which statistics are available, generic drugs saved the U.S. healthcare system an estimated amount of almost $400 billion. I feel compelled to also point out that a high-quality, low-cost, and reliable generic drug supply is essential to the public health of the more than 7 billion people who live outside the United States. Your success has implications far beyond the needs of the U.S. and other high-income countries. But as in any field, and nowhere more so than in science, changes come fast and frequent, and those changes require continued adaptation. When the Hatch-Waxman amendments created the framework for a generic drug review, most drugs were simple small molecules. These products generally involve straightforward and relatively simple reproducible manufacturing processes. They were easier to characterize and evaluate through traditional methods, including human bioequivalence studies. Today, however, many drugs have more complex formulations, active ingredients, and delivery systems. In other instances, a complex drug may be the one that acts locally on the tissue rather than through the concentration in the blood. What all this can mean is that these products can be more difficult to replicate, develop, and manufacture. And this is where the FDA plays a particularly important role. As the pharmaceutical science advances and the challenges posed by the increasing complexity of formulations and delivery systems grows, the FDA works to provide generic drug developers a clear regulatory process with streamlined, predictable, and science-based information that help reduce the time, cost, and uncertainty in developing these products. FDA scientists work collaboratively with partners in academia, the commercial research infrastructure, and industry to communicate early and develop innovative tools to overcome some of these challenges. The centerpiece of this process, as well as of this meeting, is the 2012 Generic Drug User Fee Act, or GDUFA, and its subsequent reauthorizations. GDUFA introduced critical timelines for application assessment. Most significantly, though, for our discussion here, it established the GDUFA Science and Research Program, which, thanks to the dedicated resources and structured framework for innovation, continues to help propel the industry forward, driving progress in science and technology to enhance generic drug development and approval. The program has consistently fostered early engagement between the FDA and generic drug industry, supported collaboration with generic industry representatives to determine the priority initiatives, facilitate continued engagement with prospective ANDA applicants through pre-ANDA meetings, and provided opportunities for better informed engagement following ANDA submission in meetings between FDA and ANDA applicants to discuss scientific matters. Here I'd like to just say I would encourage all of you to talk this up, because when I'm dealing in the public sphere, very few people actually understand how much work goes into the pre-application system and the importance of the communication that goes on. It's a huge part of the work of the FDA that I think is not well appreciated. At its core, GDUFA research aims to make generic drug development and assessment more efficient while maintaining a high degree of reliability. These efficiencies can make it more feasible for manufacturers to develop generic drugs, which can reduce the risk of drug shortages and facilitates competition that generally reduces the cost of medicines. This enhances patient access to treatment by helping make these products more available, allowing patients in the U.S. to get the medicines they need. Before I return to the evolving landscape of generic drugs, I think it's important to address the occasional criticism and generalization, or perhaps overgeneralization, that we often hear from some who say, quote, generics are just copies, unquote. On one level, of course, that's true. Generics include the same active ingredient formula as a brand name drug. However, the development process involves far more than simply copying ingredients, as you might do in a recipe. It involves intricate scientific work, and by the same token, assessment across various disciplines is required to evaluate generic drug applications to ensure the generic medicines are safe and effective before they can be approved. Both the development and the assessment will serve society best if we collaborate on the principles of the involved science and manufacturing while maintaining appropriate boundaries in the evaluation process. To use a much simpler example, consider what it would be like to replicate your grandmother's famous and probably top secret chocolate chip cookie recipe, or the secret formula for Coca-Cola. You couldn't do it by just looking at the cookies or the soda. With a generic drug, however, you're not just trying to replicate taste, you must demonstrate bioequivalence. That's a tough standard involving a complicated process. And it's only grown as the products increasingly involve some of the most advanced pharmaceuticals in the therapeutic armamentarium. They may involve novel delivery systems with products that include precision devices, novel active ingredients such as oligonucleotides, and unique routes of delivery that are relevant to specific diseases or provide more rapid onset of efficacy. Moreover, the process involves more than just scientific review. We also have investigators who conduct facility inspections throughout the world. We're in the middle right now of the largest reorganization in the history of the FDA, largely involving the group that you used to know as ORA that will be known as OII as of October 1st as the reorganization comes into place. And our patent exclusivity team plays an essential role in determining if we can act on applications. Furthermore, disciplined project managers and regulatory project managers help pull all these pieces together. All of this underscores the complexity and enormity of this undertaking as this field of regulatory science continues to evolve. The FDA works to integrate technological advancements and innovative research methodologies to streamline approval processes. Innovative tools enhance the understanding of complex drug interactions and mechanisms, aiding in the development of generics for more accurate, intricate formulations. Robust approaches, including analytical techniques and bioequivalence studies, enable accurate assessment of generic drug quality and equivalence to ensure that generic drug products are safe, effective, and high quality, just like their brand name counterparts. Let me offer one example of a recently approved generic product that illustrates the meaning of FDA-supported scientific innovation and what can come out of years of GDUFA-supported research. In July 2024, FDA approved the first generic for bupivacaine liposome injectable suspension, a locally acting product for pain management. The treatment uses multivesicular liposomes as the drug delivery system. By any definition, it's a complex product. It was the FDA's research to better understand formulation characteristics and drug release mechanisms, which was presented at this workshop in 2018, that enabled the development of a product-specific guidance that lays out clear expectations on an in vivo PK study in healthy subjects, along with comparative characterization studies to enable generic development of this complex product. And last October, the Generic Drug Program launched a pilot that offers new and early meeting opportunities to prospective generic drug applicants who are using model integrated evidence approaches for bioequivalence establishment in their ANDAs. MIE approaches combine data from in vivo or in vitro studies with scientifically sound mechanistic models to provide more efficient ways of demonstrating bioequivalence in some of the most complex situations facing the generic drug program. I also want to briefly mention how the FDA's research and collaboration extends to other international regulatory authorities in our work to create consistent, scientifically driven international standards. The recent endorsement by the International Council of Harmonization of the first harmonized guidance for generic drugs titled M13A, Bioequivalence for Immediate Release Solid Oral Dosage Forms, is one such example of successful collaboration. This guidance, which represents efforts and harmonization of 22 global organizations, describes the scientific and technical aspects to support bioequivalence assessments for orally administered immediate release drugs. You'll hear updates on all these programs during the workshop, and I hope many of you will take advantage of FDA's many opportunities to engage during the drug development and approval processes. Finally, I want to mention the logistical challenges involving supply chains that we're working to address. For instance, one way we're trying to strengthen our medication supply chain and patient access is by encouraging and facilitating the adoption of advanced manufacturing processes. Ensuring that drug manufacturers will have access to advanced manufacturing technologies is vitally important because advanced manufacturing requires a skilled workforce and can help domestic companies operate with lower costs and fewer quality defects in smaller facilities improving the global competitiveness of U.S. manufacturing. Our Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, or CDER, has developed an emerging technology program known as the Framework for Regulatory Advanced Manufacturing Evaluation Initiative, or FRAME. Its goal is to support implementation of advanced manufacturing technologies and build a robust extramural and intramural advanced manufacturing research program. The program has a purpose to engage with companies that are pursuing innovative approaches to pharmaceutical product design and manufacturing early in the development process. The emerging technology team can help identify and discuss scientific and regulatory challenges prior to a regulatory submission, which can streamline the application submission process. The ETT has facilitated the approval of drugs manufactured using continuous manufacturing for a range of product types, including solid oral dosage forms and biotechnology products. As I hope this brief summary makes clear, there's a lot happening in this area, and we're eager to work with you. If you thought it was simple, just the terms that have been used in this address are really quite remarkable. If we look back 20 years ago, couldn't have been anticipated. This workshop is a key component of our stewardship of the GDUFA program and an example of our dedication to open communications with the generic drug industry and the broader public on this important research. By sharing cutting-edge research, methodologies, and tools, such as the new equivalence approaches, analytical techniques, and PBPK modeling, we seek to advance the development of generic drugs and contribute to the availability and access to safe, effective, and high-quality medicines. Thanks again for your engagement. I know there's a big audience out there who really are more interested in hearing from the scientific experts than the pontification of the commissioner, but I appreciate the chance to summarize a lot of great work done by our team and the great hopes for you all as you make better and better drugs more accessible to the public. Thanks again and have a great meeting.